The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with activity as thousands of representatives from across the stars gathered for an emergency session. The dome-shaped room featured rising tiers of seats, each occupied by beings of wildly different shapes and biologies. Some floated in containment fields filled with exotic gases, while others sat comfortably in standard gravity wells. Ambassador Taman stood at the central podium, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light as he moved. Unlike most Vesperi, whose bodies typically glowed in soft blues, Taman's surface was flashing with urgent red patterns, the Vesperi equivalent of extreme agitation. Honored representatives, Taman began, his translator converting his harmonic vibrations into standard galactic speech. The Observation Corps has submitted disturbing reports about the bipedal mammals of the third planet in system Sol 3928. These humans have accelerated their technological development at a rate unprecedented in our records. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing images of Earth's rapid industrialization, nuclear technologies, and early space ventures. In merely 2 centuries, they have progressed from primitive combustion engines to nuclear fission and the beginnings of space exploration, continued Taman. But more concerning than their technological growth is their behavioral pattern. The displays shifted to show human conflicts, wars fought with increasing efficiency and destruction. They adapt rapidly to challenges. When faced with problems, they solve them with remarkable speed. When threatened, they respond with overwhelming force. Their history is marked by constant conflict and competition. Yet paradoxically, these very conflicts drive their greatest innovations. Taman's crystalline form pulsed with urgency. The Vesperi Collective formally requests an immediate quarantine of the Sol system. All observation should be conducted remotely. No contact should be permitted until we better understand the potential threat these humans pose. A murmur spread through the chamber, some concerned, many dismissive. From the middle tier, Jinwu of the Trelixian Federation rose. Her 4 upper limbs moved in graceful gestures of skepticism as her lower limbs kept her balanced. The gelatinous sacs along her neck inflated slightly, a sign of amusement among her kind. The distinguished ambassador's concerns seemed greatly exaggerated, Jinwu said, her voice carrying naturally without amplification. We have monitored thousands of developing species. Many show aggressive tendencies during their early development. These humans are barely able to reach their own moon, using the most primitive of propulsion systems. Their weapons, while destructive on their scale, are toys compared to even our defensive technologies. The displays shifted to show human spacecraft. Bulky chemical rockets that seemed almost comically primitive compared to the gravity drives and spatial folding technologies common throughout the galaxy. The Trelixian Federation sees no reason for expensive quarantine measures, Jinwu continued. Standard observation protocols are more than adequate. These humans pose no threat to spacefaring civilizations. Many representatives nodded in agreement. Ambassador Taman's crystalline surface flashed with patterns of frustration. The Vesperi did not come to this conclusion lightly, he countered. Our prediction models show a 78% chance that if contacted within the next 50 years, human response will lead to interspecies conflict. Their entire history shows that when confronted with more advanced outsiders, they respond not with submission but with rapid adaptation and resistance. In the upper gallery, where the oldest and most respected species held seats of observation rather than direct governance, a group of Zenithians watched silently. Their ancient bodies, little more than swirls of energy contained in simple robes, betrayed no emotion, but they exchanged private communications. The Vesperi is correct, communicated Elder Hyunwoo to his colleagues. I have witnessed this pattern before. The rapid adaptation, the competitive drive. These humans resemble the early Krath, whose expansion nearly destabilized the galactic peace 5 million years ago. Yet intervention creates its own problems, replied Elder Juwu. Perhaps they will mature past their violent tendencies if given time, or perhaps they will bring those tendencies to the stars. Hanwoo responded gravely. Down on the council floor, The debate grew heated. Representative Summi of the Draxian Imperium had taken the floor, her scaled skin flushed with the dark purple of ambition. The Draxian Imperium finds this discussion unnecessarily cautious, she declared. New species represent new opportunities, resources, labor, cultural exchange. Our preliminary scans show Earth is rich in rare minerals and biological diversity. The humans could benefit greatly from our guidance and protection. Taman's crystal structure nearly vibrated with alarm. The Draxian Imperium's interest only confirms our concerns. Your history of protective relationships with developing worlds is well documented. The Council Arbiter, a being of pure geometric light, chimed softly to restore order. We will now vote on the Vesperi proposal for quarantine status for Sol 3928. The chamber's central display showed the votes as they came in, a slow-building rejection of the quarantine proposal. When the final tally appeared, the outcome was clear. By a margin of over 70%, the Galactic Council had voted to maintain standard observation protocols for Earth. No special restrictions would be imposed on contact with humans. Ambassador Taman's light patterns dimmed in defeat. The Council has spoken, but the Vesperi Collective formally registers its protest. We predict that this decision will be regretted by many present today. As the session adjourned, representatives filed out, already focused on the next items on the Council's agenda. Few noticed the Zenithians remaining in their gallery, their energy forms pulsing with concern. They always believed themselves safe behind their advanced technology, Elder Hyunwoo remarked privately. They forget that true danger often comes not from technological parity, but from the unexpected. Should we intervene more directly? Asked Juwoo. Our treaties limit our actions to observation and counsel, Hyunwoo replied. For now, we watch and wait, but I fear the younger races have just made a grave error in judgment. In the departing crowd, Representative Summi of the Draxians approached several military advisors with a private communication channel activated. Begin preparations for a preliminary contact mission to Sol 3928, she instructed. The Council's decision gives us the opening we need. These humans and their resource-rich world will make an excellent addition to the Imperium. Their primitive weapons and technology cannot possibly stand against even our smallest battle fleet. As the Council chambers emptied, the decision was made. The warning went unheeded, and in the darkness between the stars, the fate of two civilizations, human and Draxian, was set on a collision course that would change the galaxy forever. 20 Earth years passed since the Galactic Council dismissed Ambassador Taman's warnings. During that time, humans made remarkable progress. They established permanent bases on their moon, landed exploration vehicles on Mars, and developed more efficient propulsion systems. Still, they remained unaware of the wider galactic community watching them. That changed on a clear Tuesday morning. The first signs came as strange readings on Earth's monitoring systems. Satellite operators noted unusual disturbances in the upper atmosphere. Astronomical observatories reported objects moving at impossible speeds, decelerating rapidly as they approached Earth. Within hours, massive ships appeared over major cities worldwide: Beijing, New York, London, Moscow, Tokyo, and others. Each vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, their hulls gleaming with a metallic purple sheen that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid despite their solid structure. General Chino sat rigid in his chair at the Korean Defense Command Center in Seoul, watching as one of these enormous ships hovered directly over the city. The room around him was chaos, officers shouting into phones, analysts poring over data streams, government officials demanding answers he didn't have. All attempts at communication have failed, sir, reported Captain Mina, her face pale but composed. They're broadcasting something, but it's not on any frequency we recognize. What about our jets? Chino asked. 3 squadrons are maintaining safe distance. The Americans, Chinese, and Europeans report the same. No one wants to fire the first shot. The general nodded grimly. And if we did, I doubt our weapons would do much against ships that size." The main screen flickered suddenly, interrupting their conversation. The military broadcast was replaced by an image of a reptilian being. Its scaled skin was dark purple with gold markings, and its eyes were vertical slits of bright yellow. When it spoke, its voice was deep and resonant, somehow perfectly translated into every human language simultaneously. "People of Earth," the being announced, "I am High Commander Sunmi of the Draxian Imperium. Your world now stands at the threshold of a great opportunity. The Draxian Imperium brings order and advancement to developing civilizations across the galaxy. Today, we extend this protection to you." Across the globe, humans watched in stunned silence as the alien continued. "For millennia, your species has struggled alone. No more. Under Draxian guidance, you will receive access to technologies beyond your imagination. Your diseases will be cured, your environmental concerns addressed, your lives extended. In exchange, we require only your cooperation, allegiance, and reasonable access to your planet's resources." The being's mouth stretched in what might have been intended as a smile, but revealed rows of sharp teeth. "To demonstrate our power and the futility of resistance, observe." The broadcast switched to a live feed of a remote, uninhabited island in the Pacific. A beam of intense light shot from the Draxian ship hovering there. When it touched the island, the entire landmass disintegrated into dust within seconds. "You have 24 of your Earth hours to assemble your world leaders and prepare for formal integration into the Imperium. Resistance would be regrettable." The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence in the command center. "Get me the President," Junot ordered, breaking the spell, "and patch me through to other military commands. We need to coordinate." Within hours, an unprecedented global cooperation emerged. Scientists and engineers worldwide began analyzing every second of footage of the alien ships, looking for any weakness. Military strategists from former enemy nations shared information freely. Hackers and computer experts worked frantically to penetrate the alien broadcasts, hoping to learn more about their systems. In a secure underground facility beneath Seoul, Dr. Henjin stared at her computer screen, eyes widening. "I found something," she announced to the room of exhausted experts. "The translation system they're using. It's adapting to our language patterns in real time, but there's a lag in processing. And their communication signals, they're not as alien as they first appeared." She pulled up a complex diagram. "Their data packets share similarities with our basic network protocols. Different, yes, but with recognizable structures, almost as if they studied and modify our own technology," finished Dr. Jae-yun, looking over her shoulder. "Which means maybe we can hack them back." Word of this discovery spread quickly through secured channels. Similar breakthroughs were happening elsewhere. In Bangalore, engineers discovered that the Draxian ships emitted energy signatures that suggested vulnerability to electromagnetic interference. In Boston, physicists noted that the ship's hull material seemed to react peculiarly to certain frequencies of radiation. When the 24-hour deadline approached, the Draxian ships positioned themselves expectantly over government centers worldwide. High Commander Sunmi appeared again on global broadcasts. "Your time has elapsed. What is your answer?" To the commander's surprise, no human leader appeared to respond. Instead, the transmission was unexpectedly cut short. Across Draxian ships, critical systems began failing, their communications filled with strange human imagery. What they would later learn were called memes and blaring sounds. What the Draxians didn't know was that human hackers had worked tirelessly, finding backdoors into the alien systems through their own translation and communication technologies. The Draxians had studied human computers, but failed to realize how quickly humans could reverse engineer and exploit their findings. On the Draxian command ship, Sumni raged as controls failed and security protocols were bypassed with alarming ease. "Impossible. Their technology is primitive. How are they doing this?" "Unknown, Commander," her officer replied, frantically trying to restore systems. They're inside our networks somehow. And our ground forces report unexpected resistance. The humans are adapting our own weapons against us. The initial Draxian landings had met not with surrender, but with carefully planned ambushes. Human weapons might have been ineffective at first, but scientists had worked through the night to modify them based on observations of Draxian technology. More concerning to the Draxians was the biological warfare. Several ground troops had already collapsed from what appeared to be simple human bacteria, organisms their immune systems had never encountered. The Draxians had prepared for resistance with weapons, but not with microscopic life that had evolved on Earth. In orbit, 3 smaller Draxian vessels suddenly lost power and began drifting. The humans had somehow transmitted a virus through the communication systems that was spreading ship to ship. All vessels, emergency protocols. Sunny ordered. Isolate all systems from Central Command. Prepare for direct military response. But it was too late for several ships. The humans had found weaknesses and exploited them with remarkable speed. As the first day of the invasion ended, the Draxians found themselves in a shocking position. What should have been a simple subjugation had turned into a genuine fight. The species they had dismissed as primitive was proving dangerously adaptive. In the Korean Defense Command Center, General Chunho watched as the first Draxian ship retreated to a higher orbit, its weapon systems temporarily disabled by the coordinated cyber attack. "They didn't expect this," he said quietly. "They thought we would surrender." Captain Minna nodded, her eyes still fixed on the tactical displays. "They don't understand humans very well, do they?" "No," the general replied, a grim smile forming. "And that will be their biggest mistake." The conflict that became known across the galaxy as the 7-Day War began in earnest on the 3rd day after the Draxian arrival. High Commander Sunmi, her scaled face twisted in rage, ordered full military engagement against the surprisingly resistant humans. "These primitives refuse our generous offer," she hissed to her war council aboard the command ship. "Their insolence will be punished. Deploy all ground forces and activate the orbital defense grid." The Draxian military was vast and technologically superior by every measure. Their soldiers wore powered armor that could withstand most conventional weapons. Their dropships moved with impossible speed, deploying troops across the globe. Their energy weapons cut through buildings and vehicles like they were made of paper. But the humans refused to fight by conventional rules. In Seoul, Professor Ji-hoon worked without sleep in his university laboratory. Around him, a team of South Korea's best microbiologists studied samples taken from fallen Draxian soldiers. "Their biology is fascinating," Ji-hoon muttered, eyes red from exhaustion as he peered through a microscope. "Complex immune systems, but completely unprepared for Earth's microbial environment." A young assistant looked up from her own work. "We've identified 3 common bacteria that cause severe respiratory distress in their systems. Nothing harmful to humans." Ji-hoon nodded grimly. "Prepare the aerosol delivery systems and send these findings to our colleagues worldwide." Within hours, human resistance fighters were equipped with simple spray devices containing modified versions of common Earth bacteria. When Draxian troops stormed through Tokyo's financial district, they were met not just with conventional resistance, but with clouds of microscopic organisms that their suits couldn't filter. Dozens collapsed, their alien immune systems overwhelmed by life forms they had never evolved to combat. Meanwhile, in a basement in London, Do-hyun hunched over a disassembled Draxian rifle. The young engineer had always had a talent for taking things apart and putting them back together. Around him, other engineers watched in fascination. "Their power source is incredible," he explained, carefully removing a glowing blue cylinder, "some kind of energy compression technology. But the firing mechanism is surprisingly simple." He pointed to a component that resembled a circuit board. "This regulates the energy output, if we can modify it." 24 hours later, modified Draxian weapons were in human hands. The invaders were shocked to face their own technology turned against them, often with modifications that made the weapons even more effective than the originals. High above Earth, the Draxian command ship received increasingly desperate reports from ground forces. Sector 12 lost contact. Sector 7 reporting unknown biological weapons. Sector 3 commander reports humans using modified Draxian technology. A communications officer reported, his scales pale with stress. Sunmi slammed her clawed hand against a console. Impossible. How are they adapting so quickly? Where is our orbital support? Commander, another officer interrupted. Our orbital platforms are experiencing system failures. Human hackers have somehow infiltrated their control networks. This was perhaps the most shocking development of all. The Draxian cybersecurity was considered nearly impenetrable, built on technologies developed over thousands of years. Yet human-computer experts had found ways to bypass them within days of first contact. In a nondescript office building in Bangalore, Yoonjin led a team of programmers who had been working continuously since the invasion began. The room was littered with empty coffee cups and food containers. Their systems are advanced, she explained to a military officer watching their progress. But ironically, that makes them vulnerable in ways they don't expect. They've built layers of security over centuries, adding new protections without ever completely rebuilding the foundation. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Like a house with hundreds of locks on the front door, but windows in the back. We found those windows. On screens around the room, Draxian code scrolled and flickered as the hackers systematically dismantled the aliens' orbital defenses. By the 5th day, the tide had turned dramatically. Humans had captured enough Draxian technology to begin producing countermeasures on a large scale. The aliens' biological vulnerability to Earth's microorganisms had been exploited to devastating effect. And most surprisingly to the invaders, humans had begun to understand and modify the aliens' own faster-than-light communication systems. In what would later be recognized as the turning point of the war, a coordinated attack disabled the shields on 3 Draxian battleships simultaneously. Earth's militaries, now armed with modified alien weapons, launched a counteroffensive that destroyed 2 ships and forced the third to retreat. On the command ship, Sunmi faced the unthinkable: defeat at the hands of a supposedly primitive species. We must regroup, she finally acknowledged to her remaining officers. Order all forces to return to the ships. We will withdraw to lunar orbit and request reinforcements from the Imperium. But even this retreat proved challenging. Humans had begun deploying hastily constructed spacecraft using modified Draxian engine technology. These crude but effective vessels harassed the retreating alien ships, further damaging their systems. The most remarkable breakthrough came on the 6th day, when Dr. Minjin announced to a stunned room of scientists and military leaders that his team had successfully reverse-engineered the basic principles of Draxian faster-than-light travel. It's not elegant, he cautioned, displaying diagrams of the massive engine his team had designed. And it's dangerous. But it works. We can build ships capable of pursuing them beyond Earth orbit. General Chunho, who had become one of the leaders of Earth's unified defense, shook his head in amazement. In less than a week, we've gone from being trapped on our planet to having interstellar capability. Is this prototype ready for deployment? We've installed it on the modified carrier. It awaits your orders. On the 7th day, as the Draxian fleet retreated to the dark side of the moon to lick their wounds and prepare for a second assault, they received a shocking transmission. "Attention Draxian Command," came a human voice, speaking in the aliens' own language. "This is General Chunho of Earth's unified defense. Your invasion has failed. We now possess your faster-than-light technology, your weapons systems, and your communication networks. We offer you one chance to surrender." To emphasize the point, a human ship appeared near the Draxian fleet, having just completed a short faster-than-light jump. It was crude compared to the alien vessels, clearly a retrofitted Earth spacecraft with Draxian technology grafted onto it. But its very presence was impossible according to what the Draxians believed about human capabilities. In the Draxian command center, Sunmi stared at the view screen in disbelief. How could they advance so quickly? Her science officer, scales pale with fear, replied quietly. The Vesperi warning to the Council. They tried to tell us about human adaptability. We should have listened. Sunny made the hardest decision of her career. Prepare the fleet for emergency jump to Draxian space. We must warn the Imperium. As the Draxian fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished from the Sol system, they left behind enough damaged ships and technology for humanity to complete their technological transformation. Within months, Earth would build its first true interstellar vessels. Within a year, they would be ready to take their place among the stars. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had demonstrated an adaptability that would soon change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The 7-Day War was over, but humanity's story among the stars was just beginning. 6 months after the Draxian retreat, the massive central chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from thousands of worlds shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Rumors had spread quickly through the galactic community. The supposedly primitive humans had not only defeated a Draxian invasion fleet, but had also mastered faster-than-light travel in an impossibly short time. Many believed these reports were exaggerated. Others insisted they must be completely false. After all, no species in recorded history had gone from atmospheric flight to interstellar travel in less than 3 centuries. The humans had allegedly done it in less than 1. Ambassador Taman of the Vesperi stood quietly near the central podium, his crystalline body pulsing with a pattern that, to those who could read Vesperi emotions, clearly said, "I warned you." The Council Arbiter, a being of geometric light, chimed softly to call the session to order. "This emergency meeting will now commence. We have received formal contact from the species of Sol 3928, known as humans. They have requested." Before the Arbiter could finish, the massive doors to the chamber slid open. A hush fell over the assembly as 5 humans walked confidently into the room. They wore simple but elegantly designed suits in dark blue, with a patch on the shoulder showing Earth surrounded by stars. Leading them was a woman of medium height with a serious expression. The humans walked directly to the central platform without hesitation, showing no awe at the diverse alien forms watching them from all sides. "Impossible," whispered Representative Jinwu of the Trelexians, whose dismissal of Taman's warning years earlier had helped lead to this moment. "They cannot have mastered interstellar travel so quickly." The lead human bowed slightly to the Arbiter, then turned to face the assembly. When she spoke, her voice was clear and calm, and to the shock of many present, she addressed them in perfect galactic standard. "Greetings to the Galactic Council. I am Ambassador Minji of Earth's unified government. We come in peace, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with the galactic community." A murmur ran through the chamber. Not only had humans developed faster-than-light travel, but they had also mastered the complex galactic standard language without any formal teaching. The Arbiter's light form pulsed with surprise but maintained protocol. "Ambassador Minji, the Council welcomes you. However, we must note that unannounced arrivals are unusual. How did you locate our Council world?" Minji smiled slightly. The Draxian invasion fleet carried complete navigational data and Council protocols. We studied them thoroughly after repelling their attack. Another ripple of shock moved through the chamber. The casual way she mentioned defeating a Draxian battle fleet, something many established galactic powers would struggle to accomplish, was not lost on anyone present. From the Draxian section, a representative rose, his purple scales flushed dark with anger. "The humans are a dangerous, aggressive species. They attacked our peaceful contact mission and stole our technology. They should be quarantined immediately." Minji's expression didn't change, but her voice took on a sharper edge. "Peaceful. Your ships destroyed an uninhabited island as a demonstration of power. You demanded our submission and threatened our civilization. We merely defended ourselves." She tapped a small device on her wrist, and holographic displays appeared around the chamber. They showed footage of the Draxian ships appearing over Earth's cities, the ultimatum, and the destruction of the Pacific Island. "We came here today for 2 reasons. Minji continued calmly. First, to introduce ourselves properly to the galactic community, as the Draxians denied us that opportunity. And second, to make something very clear. Earth is not open to colonization, subjugation, or exploitation. We seek peaceful relations with all species, but we will defend ourselves against any aggression. The council chamber erupted into chaotic debate. Some representatives called for immediate military action to contain what they perceived as a human threat. Others argued for caution, pointing out that the humans had only acted in self-defense. A few suggested forming alliances with these newcomers before other powers did so. Ambassador Taman stepped forward, his crystalline form glowing softly. The council ignored the Vesperi warning about human adaptability. Now we see the consequences. Rather than fear them, perhaps we should listen to what they have to say. From the highest tier of the chamber, where the ancient Zenithian observers sat, Elder Hyunwoo rose slowly. The chamber fell silent immediately. It was rare for a Zenithian to address the council directly. His energy form pulsed gently as he spoke. I have witnessed the rise and fall of many species across 50,000 years, he said, his voice somehow both ancient and clear. The humans before us today represent something unusual but not unprecedented. Their rapid adaptation is both their greatest strength and a potential danger, to themselves as much as to others. The Elder's energy form shifted to face the human delegation directly. Young ones, your species has compressed millennia of development into months. This path carries great risk. Technology without wisdom often leads to destruction. Ambassador Minji nodded respectfully. We are aware of the dangers, Elder. That is why we come seeking dialogue rather than continuing in isolation. We hope to learn from the experiences of other species. A wise approach, Hyunwoo acknowledged. The humans do not seek conquest as many of you fear. Their history reveals a pattern. They seek security above all. Their existence has been defined by constant struggle, against nature, against each other. This has forged in them both cooperation and competition, compassion and ferocity. The Elder's voice resonated through the chamber. Threaten them, and you will see their ferocity. Respect them, and you will benefit from their creativity. The council debated long into the night. Some powers, particularly those with expansionist tendencies, continued to argue for containment or even preemptive strikes against Earth. Others recognized the potential benefits of human ingenuity if properly channeled into peaceful cooperation. In a quiet moment during a recess, Ambassador Taman approached Minji in one of the chamber side halls. Your arrival has caused quite a stir, the Vesperi observed, his crystalline form pulsing with curious patterns. That wasn't our intention, Minji replied. But perhaps it was inevitable. I warned the council about human adaptability years ago. They chose not to listen. Minji studied the crystalline being with interest. Then you understand us better than most here. We don't want war, Ambassador Taman. But we won't accept threats to our existence. The question that concerns many, Taman said carefully, is what humans want. Power, territory, resources, knowledge, Minji answered simply. Security, connection. We've been alone on our world, wondering if other intelligent life existed. Now we know it does, in amazing diversity. We want to learn, to trade, to build relationships. But as equals, not as subjects or specimens. The Vesperi's lights shifted to a pattern indicating thoughtful consideration, an admirable goal. Though achieving it may not be simple, many powers here have existed for thousands of years with established hierarchies and expectations. Then they'll need to adapt, Minji said with a small smile. We've learned that's something we humans are particularly good at. As the council session resumed, the fate of human galactic relations hung in the balance. But one thing was already clear to everyone present. The galaxy had changed irrevocably. The species that many had dismissed as primitive had arrived on the galactic stage far ahead of schedule, and they would not be ignored. 100 years passed since humans first stepped onto the galactic stage. What began with the desperate defense of Earth had transformed into something no species could have predicted. In the Great Garden Terrace of the Galactic University on Centauri Prime, Professor Jiho stood before a mixed class of students. Young beings from 40 different species sat, floated or hovered in the specially designed learning space. Some breathed methane, others oxygen, and a few required no atmosphere at all. Yet they all shared a common purpose: to learn from one of the galaxy's most respected teachers of cynopolitical history. The human integration period, which we now recognize as the beginning of the galactic renaissance, challenges many of our previous assumptions about species development. Jiho explained, activating a holographic timeline that stretched through the air. Before humans, most spacefaring civilizations followed predictable patterns of advancement, taking centuries or even millennia to progress through technological stages. A Zenithian student, their energy form barely contained in a student's robe, raised an appendage. Professor, is it true that humans went from no faster than light travel to building the first Harmony-class ships in just 15 years? Jiho smiled. Indeed. The first human FTL ships were crude adaptations of Draxian technology. But within a decade, human engineers had completely reimagined the principles involved. The Harmony-class ships represented the first true human-originated design, incorporating ideas that other species had never considered. In orbit above the university planet, a massive Harmony-class vessel moved gracefully through space. Unlike the utilitarian designs favored by most species, human ships featured flowing, organic curves. They were as much works of art as they were functional vessels, reflecting humanity's belief that beauty and utility could coexist. But the technological advancements were only part of the story. Jiho continued. Perhaps more significant was humanity's cultural impact. The hologram shifted to show scenes from across the galaxy, a Trilixian orchestra performing the human symphony, a Vesperi crystal garden designed using human aesthetic principles, and Draxian youth wearing clothing inspired by human fashion. Humans brought a unique perspective. Their art, music, and philosophy were shaped by their isolated development and the constant struggle that defined their evolution. When introduced to the galactic community, these ideas sparked a creative explosion across all fields. At the same time, in the Galactic Council chambers, another significant meeting was taking place. Fleet Admiral Minho, the human commander of the Galactic Defense Coalition, stood before the Council presenting the annual security report. For the 5th consecutive year, we've maintained peace across all 27 sectors, he reported, his uniform bearing the symbols of dozens of worlds. The Coalition fleet, with ships and crews from 93 species, continues to prove that our united defense is stronger than any single power. The Council Arbiter's light form pulsed with approval. The Defense Coalition stands as perhaps the greatest achievement of the Renaissance period. Before human organizational strategies were adopted, our various defense forces rarely coordinated effectively. Admiral Minho nodded respectfully. Necessity drove human military innovation on Earth. When we faced the Draxian invasion with inferior technology, we had to emphasize coordination, adaptability, and creative problem-solving. These principles proved equally valuable on a galactic scale. On the far side of the galaxy, those principles were being put to their greatest test. The research vessel GRS Discovery hovered at the edge of a swirling anomaly. Strange energy readings pulsed from what appeared to be a tear in space itself. On the bridge, Captain Suman frowned at the readings. The human officer commanded a crew from 17 different species, each chosen for their unique abilities and perspectives. The Void Swarm is definitely increasing its activity, she said, studying the data. These energy signatures match what we saw at Proxima Centauri before the attack. Her first officer, a Draxian named Tarek, nodded grimly. His purple scales had faded somewhat with age, but his eyes remained sharp. The ancient texts in my world's archives spoke of the swarm, but we dismissed them as myths. We were wrong. Most species made that mistake, Suman replied, treating cycles that spanned thousands of years as mere legends. Only the Zenithians remembered, and even they didn't fully understand what we're facing. The Void Swarm had emerged from the galactic core 3 years earlier, entities of pure energy that consumed all matter in their path. Ancient records suggested they appeared every 50,000 years, but each time civilization had to relearn how to fight them. "Launch the probe with the modified shield," Suman ordered. "Let's see if Dr. Yuna's theory works." As the probe entered the anomaly, it broadcast data back to the ship. The shield, designed by a human physicist working with engineers from 6 other species, created a unique energy field that the swarm couldn't penetrate. "It's working," exclaimed the sensor officer, a Vesperi whose crystalline form flashed with excitement. "The shield is repelling them." Captain Suman allowed herself a small smile. "Send the data to Coalition headquarters. This could be the breakthrough we've been looking for." Back in the heart of galactic civilization, on a planet that had once hosted only the Galactic Council, a new monument was being unveiled. The Grand Plaza now featured representatives from all member species, but today's ceremony held special significance. Ambassador Yeji, granddaughter of the legendary Minji who had first represented humanity to the Council, stood beside Draxian Ambassador Keth as they removed the covering from the new installation. Revealed was a simple earth tree growing in soil from both worlds, human and Draxian, with an inscription in all major galactic languages. "From small seeds grow mighty futures. The universe rewards not those who fear change, but those who adapt to embrace it." The symbolism was not lost on anyone present. The Draxians, once humanity's would-be conquerors, had become their closest allies after a dramatic cultural reformation. The species that had tried to subjugate Earth had instead found itself transformed by contact with humans, abandoning millennia of imperial ambition in favor of cooperative advancement. Ambassador Keth, his purple scales gleaming in the sunlight, addressed the gathered crowd. 100 years ago, my ancestors made a grave error. They saw the humans as primitive beings to be conquered. Instead, they found equals who showed us a better path. The price we paid for ignoring warnings about humans was the loss of our arrogance, and we are better for it. Ambassador Yeji smiled as she took her place beside him. "And we humans learned that our greatest strength was never our ability to fight, but our ability to connect. Alone, we were vulnerable. Together with our galactic neighbors, we've created something greater than any single species could achieve." Above them, ships from 100 worlds moved through the peaceful skies. Among them were the distinctive forms of Harmony-class vessels, now built by shipyards throughout the galaxy. Their design philosophy, blending beauty, efficiency, and innovation, had spread far beyond their human origins. In the Zenithian observation gallery that overlooked the ceremony, Elder Hyunwoo watched with satisfaction. After 50,000 years of existence, very little surprised him, but humanity had proven to be the exception. "They adapted faster than even I predicted," he commented to his fellow Elder Juwoo. "And forced the rest of us to adapt as well," she replied, her energy form shifting thoughtfully. Perhaps that was what the galaxy needed, a species that refused to accept limitations. Indeed, Hanwoo agreed. The warnings about humans were correct, but incomplete. Their potential for destruction was matched by their potential for creation. The Council feared their adaptability, but failed to see where it might lead. Below them, representatives of 1,000 worlds mingled peacefully in the plaza. The galactic renaissance was still unfolding, its full impact impossible to predict. But one thing was certain: the species that had once been dismissed as primitive had forever changed the course of galactic history, not through conquest, but through connection. The price paid for ignoring warnings about humans had ultimately been a gift to the stars themselves.